Well, in this video, I'm just going to articulate for the average Nigerians the requirements that are needed to become the president of this nation. Because we've seen over the years the type of stories that is being generated across the internet and within our communities. Why a certain individual probably may have won the election, but he wasn't installed as the president of this nation. And why a certain individual did rig the election, and so on and so forth. The debate goes on, and several other things. But what I've come to realize is that often you think that Nigerians are very, very bright people, quite intelligent people. But when you do a deep forensic audit of how they behave, you find out that at the surface level that these guys are a bit gullible. And that's the essence of this video, to clarify you on what you should look out to know when your favorite candidate had won the election or when he or she had lost the election, so you don't go out there making a fool of yourself in the name that he had the majority of votes without any step-by-step empirical backup of how he was able to achieve those things. Because I'm of the view and the opinion that you can't debate opinion, you can't debate assumptions, but you cannot debate fact. Anytime you debate fact, it simply means that something is wrong with you fundamentally. So pay attention as I explain to you what each and every person that aspires to be the president of this nation needs to have in order to be the president of this country. So that whenever the election is over, some of us don't go around making fool of ourselves, insulting one another, putting one another down, and even creating a kind of, physical and verbal altercation here and there. So now, the first thing you need to have, because you can't be the president of this country without a proper backup of the Constitution. The Constitution of this country, as amended in 1999, was written to aid the process of people being into any position in this country. Now, I'm focusing on the presidential election. I don't want to talk about the other segments of our governance. You can go and do your own Google and research on that. So the first thing you need if you aspire to become the president of this nation is you have to be born into this country. You have to be an apparent heir or heiresses of this particular country called Nigeria. And you don't need to have a dual citizenship. There's an avenue for that though, but there's a way the law states that. But the major reason is that you need to be born into this country and have the citizenship of this country to be able to partake in the process of running for the presidential election. Once that is in place and you are running for the presidential election, you have to check that particular box, the box 1. You have to be born into this country. Number 2 is that your qualification level. The minimum qualification level to become a president in this nation is WAEC. And knowing fully well that the Constitution, as is written and amended in Section 318, 1999 Constitution, states placidly that you need a minimum of WAEC to becoming a president of this nation. And they've got further went on to say that you need something of equal to WAEC if you don't have WAEC. And knowing fully well that certification are quite broadly. We have WAEC, we have GCE, we have NECO, we have primary school certificate, and the rest. The law also states that if you had gone to primary school and you have your primary school certificate and you have undergone work experience for the past 10 years, then you are eligible enough to run for the office of the president in this country. So you don't even need, because in Nigeria, we all know for sure that each time election comes in, what most Nigerians focus on is the fact that the other candidate does not go to school, the other candidate does not have doctorate degree or PhD or whatever. The law has shuttered that. The law says all you need to have is equivalent of WAEC or something of that nature. So if you have your WAEC, nobody should be debating gullibly, saying that he didn't go to school. As long as you have your WAEC, or you have NECO, or you have GCE, or you didn't even go to secondary school, but you have your primary school certificate, but you have undergone some training and business work experiences for the past 10 years, you can run for the office of the president in this country. Remember, all throughout our election for the past almost a generation now, what most of us focuses on is in who had the BSc and who didn't go to school. During the time of Mohamed Buhari, everybody was on the internet ranting about that, rambunctiously ranting about that Buhari didn't go to school, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. And I'm of the view that leadership is not sensitive to certification. Leadership is sensitive to wisdom. I think the writers of the Constitution are quite cooling, and I respect and I call them for that. Right? During the time of our current dear President Bola Ahmed Adekunle Tinubu, it was still generated a lot of bulls within the Nigerian ecosystem, where some people have to go and verify at the Chicago State University to know if he did go to school. All those nonsense are not actually necessary, because the law has provided a safety net for that, saying once you have your WAEC certificate or something of equal, there's no need to go further and talk about your BSc, Masters, and PhDs, because the law, if you don't understand, is supreme to you and me. The law is supreme to religion. The law is supreme to ethnicity. The law is supreme to everything that happens within this country. And so far, the law have said all you need is WAEC or anything related to that or equivalent to that. There's no need of going about shouting all day that this person doesn't have whatever XYZ qualifications. All those things does not make up a good leader. And the reason why that was actually created, it was the fact that they didn't want Nigeria to become a government kind of illicit society where only those who come from rich family will become president, governors, and the rest of them. You know for sure that when you come from a poor family, there are some certain level of academic qualification that you will never have access to, because your parent may not be able to be, financially buoyant enough to pay your school fees all through from their preschooler days to your tertiary institution level. Some of you would stop in your primary, some are going to start in secondary school, but you are well endowed when it comes to leadership dexterities. You understand leadership, you understand the way the system works, you could help the people. But if the opportunity is given to you to contribute your own quota, the country will continue to go down into abyss instead of progressing. So the writers of the Constitution are very akin to that reality when they made that provision. That said, the next thing is the fact that you have to be at least 30 years of age. Prior to that moment, the threshold was, if you see this section 131A, it is stated that you have to be at least 30 years of age, because that is not too young to run. That has been amended in 2018, which was just included into the law. Prior to that moment, you have to be just 40 years before you can run for the office of the president in this country. You don't need anything beyond that, just 30 years, and the law has made that provision. It doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman, as long as you are above 30 years, you can become a president in this country. That's stated succinctly in section 131A, 1899 amended constitution. The next thing is, the law says, quote unquote, that you have to win the majority of the votes to be installed as the president of this country. Why I'm going to explain this further, in the next point, you are going to understand why it may not be absolute truth. You have to win. For instance, if you guys are 4 running for the office of the president of this country, and the first person is maybe 6 million, the second 7, the third 9, and the fourth one is 10 million. So the law says you have to be the one that won 10 million. Now, if you go to section 134, amended constitution in Nigeria, that's where it is stated clearly on that. But beyond that, it is also said that for you to win and be installed as the president of this country, you have to win 25% of the 2/3 of the entire states in Nigeria. What I mean, in essence, is that you could win 10 million votes and not still have the eligibility to be installed as the president of this country, because you don't have the fully constitutional backup to undergo that process, because you are not able to secure the 25th percent of the 2/3 of the entire states in Nigeria. And why that is also true, another one is the fact that having won all of those, being the one that won the majority of the votes, having the 25th of the 2/3 of the entire states, you also have to win the Federal Capital Territory. You see, I commend the writers of the law when it comes to the fact that you need to win the 2/3 of the entire states before you can actually emerge as the president of this country. Why that is very imperative is to understand that Nigeria is a very diverse country with about 250 ethnicity, right? So they want to make sure that you are a man of the people, that you understand the culture, the customs, and the norms of the people of Nigeria. Because if that is not done, let me give you a clear example of that. In Nigeria, the two most populous states is Lagos State and Kano State. For instance, if such law is not in place that says you must win at least 24 states in the country out of the 36, then you can only focus on two states such as Lagos and Kano, because Lagos State, statistically speaking, is between 15 to 35 million people trapped in there. And Kano State is about 16 million people. And over the years, you've seen that what installs most people to become the president of Nigeria is within just 10 million, 12 million, 9 million, 8 million of votes. In other words, if you're able to gain all the votes in the Kano State and Lagos State, that is enough to install you as the president of this country. But why that is erroneous is the fact that you are not a man of the people. You just focused on Lagos State and Kano State. You are not focusing on the holistic geography of the country. In other words, even a small state needs to cast a vote for you, need to believe in your leadership. That is why that position was made by the law. You see how powerful that is. The one I will critique, though, is there already. There's nothing you can do about it, except if the parliament brings it to the table, is the fact that you also need to win the Federal Capital Territory. For me, that could actually be removed from the picture. Let the Federal Capital Territory be treated as 36 states as well, as part of the 36 states. So once you're able to have the most populous votes and you're able to win at least 24 of the states in the country, then you have already checked the mark of being able or being eligible to be installed as the president of this country. So I think this particular explanation would have shattered the illusion of who was the person that came first and who came last, just because, quote unquote, you have the larger votes. You see that the Constitution is very clear on what you need to have in place to be installed as the president of this country. In other words, you could take your most favorite individual or candidate that you think in your head won the past election, and at the end of the day, when you scrutinize the person all through these processes, there's a place that the person is going to fail. And once you fail, you are no more eligible to be installed as the president of this country. This, I think, that every average Nigerian have to understand, so that anytime you are casting your vote, you have at the back of your mind the things that is needed for you to be able to become the president of this nation. Because once that is not in place, you can't be that. I hope this video made a lot of sense, and I needed to do this to explain this little conundrum that has actually perturbed our people for almost a generation now. To all of you, you can go read it up. You can go and do further research on the state level and the electoral bodies that govern all those places, and get the information on your own, so that you don't cast your vote today and tomorrow somebody comes to the internet and said, I had 10 million votes and I believe that Mr. XYZ had 9 million votes. That for that reason, I should be the president of Nigeria. If you did not get all the requirements by the constitution of the country, you will still not be installed as the president of this country, in spite of the fact that you had the majority of the vote. Does that make sense to you? This is fact. This is not assumption. This is not about opinion. This is the constitutional facts out there that most Nigerians need to have access to. I needed to explain this in a preschooler level so that every one of us will understand it. And don't forget, share this video with your family and friends so that every person in this country will have access to this information. So the next time they are voting, they know what they are getting out of their vote. I remain Kelechi Ogbonna, aka Captain Africa. See you in another video. Bye for now.